Budgets are a zero-sum thing. And we're about to see a budget. And the House will debate the budget, and the president and congressional Republicans have to go on the record saying what will make the cut and what will not. How much is for tax cuts for the rich? How much is going to be cut out of things that working people count on? And how much are they willing to add to the deficit in order to deliver those tax cuts for the rich? And that's something that I would like to believe, everybody from the blue dog Democrats to maybe some sane Republicans, and definitely anybody on the party spectrum from me to Bernie, can get behind saying we're going to pick a big, big fight over, because that's when they have to put their cards on the table. And what we've got to do now is make clear that we too demand and expect government to work differently and better than it has, but that burning it to the ground isn't going to do that for anybody. And whether we're talking about the areas that I specifically just worked in, or more generally, what I see them doing, randomly firing people who oversee our nuclear weapons by mistake, and then bringing up and unfiring them, that is not what we mean when we say that certain parts of government may very well need to be taken apart and put back together, which I think is a legitimate feeling and frustration that I felt as a mayor when I was looking at Washington, and sometimes felt even more strongly when I was in Washington trying to make it work for places like the city that I grew up in.
Pete Buttigieg knows that the Republican jig is almost up, and Trump supporters are on the cusp of finding out exactly what it is that they actually voted for.
Project 2025 is wildly unpopular, so much so that I'm pretty sure it's the first time in modern history that a presidential candidate has had to disavow his own policy framework. And let's be clear, that's what this is, right? Just because they dissociate with the guy who wrote it up and try to get a different brand name doesn't change the fact that before it occurred to anybody to write it down and call it Project 2025, this was already their governing agenda, because it's part of the playbook they followed when they were in charge. And therefore, it will unquestionably be their governing agenda again, should he get reelected. The problem isn't this document called Project 2025, although it has embarrassed them, and it's that much more so because J.D. Vance literally wrote the foreword to the book edition of it, so they can't disavow it convincingly. But the problem isn't this thing called Project 2025. The problem is the governing agenda itself. Project 2025 is just the footnotes on what they're planning to do, which is wildly unpopular with the American people because it's full of crazy ideas that don't make any sense.
There's a fundamental math problem here. There is a constant reiteration of waste, fraud, and abuse. Sure, that's great. What is the identified amount of waste that this committee has identified? Because what the order that's been sent down here is find $880 billion. Not there is $880 billion of waste, fraud, and abuse. It's find $880 billion. And so we have not heard a single concrete number of the amount of waste that's been identified. We have not heard a single concrete number on the amount of abuse that's been identified. And there's just kind of this vague magic wand around waste, to my colleague from California's point. And waste is being used as a very large word here, because what's being suggested is that long-term care is wasteful in America, that children's health insurance is wasteful in America, that poor people seeing the doctor is a waste, that all of these people are disposable, that the elderly are disposable. So I think the problem here is that the numbers don't add up. The numbers don't add up. $880 billion is a devastating cut to Medicaid, and given that 30% of Medicaid dollars also go to Medicare, it's also an attack on Medicare, to Medicare recipients. And so while I completely understand the idea that there should not be waste, that there should not be fraud, and that there should not be abuse, $880 billion is not that. This is an attack on Medicaid, and anyone who votes on this budget this week is voting to cut Medicaid in America and voting to gut health care for Medicare recipients in America. There's just no other way around it.
Mr. Speaker, the gentlelady is talking about what was said in the Rules Committee last night. I want to take a couple of minutes to talk about how people voted in the Rules Committee last night. We gave Republicans a chance last night in the Rules Committee. We said if they really don't believe that this budget cuts funding for school meals, if they really believe what they're saying, then they can vote to assure the American people that they're not going to steal school meals from kids in order to give tax breaks for millionaires. Every Republican voted no, every single one of them. Then Democrats offered an amendment to protect Medicaid. And Medicaid, as you know, Mr. Speaker, covers 41% of all births in the United States, nearly half of children with special health care needs, and 5 in 8 nursing home residents. We asked them not to cut Medicaid in order to fund tax breaks for billionaires. Every Republican voted no. Then Democrats offered an amendment to extend tax cuts for people making under $400,000 while ensuring that corporations and billionaires pay their fair share. We asked Republicans to continue tax cuts for only those who need them the most, because those are the tax cuts they let expire while their tax cuts for greedy corporations were made permanent. We asked them to prioritize working families over greedy corporations. Every Republican voted no. Then Democrats offered an amendment preventing tax giveaways for people earning over $1 million a year. Every Republican voted no. We wanted to see if there was anyone so rich that Republicans don't think they deserve a tax giveaway. So we asked them to vote against tax breaks for people earning over $100 million per year. We asked them to side with factory workers and firefighters over hedge fund managers and billionaire bankers. Every Republican voted no. We even offered an amendment preventing tax cuts for people with a net worth of over, get this, $1 billion. Every Republican voted no. They betrayed their constituents. They voted to steal from the American people in order to protect tax breaks for billionaires. Again, this is about whose side you're on. And Republicans showed us last night with their votes whose side they're on. And it's not the working people of this country. I reserve my time.
As Americans wake up to the reality that Donald Trump's America is going to result in their lives being both harder and more precarious, it's important that we all place the blame where it belongs. And along the way, it's time to get money out of politics once and for all, with real campaign finance reform and full accountability. For way too long, the super rich have had a monopoly on both political parties, where they get to decide policy while skirting accountability and largely operating without any meaningful oversight. And of course, Elon Musk is the ultimate example of that. And if Elon Musk is showing us anything, it's that we don't need billionaires. They need us. They're parasites living off the labor and the taxpayer contributions of actual working Americans. And I gotta say it, it's way past time that we tax them out of existence while also cutting off the government funding that's gotten them rich in the first place. And along the way, you know what we can do? Save taxpayers some real money.
When you click the join button and become a Tier 2 member, you get access to all of our weekly top 10 lists. What are you waiting for?